After just 12 days, the testimony is over, the defense rests, and the jury will soon begin considering the fate of George Zimmerman on trial for the murder of Trayvon Martin. We know this is a case that has Americans watching and arguing all across this country, and ABC's Matt Gutman now tells us about the fireworks in the courtroom today.
Tensions boiling over in the courtroom today.
Have you made a decision, sir, as to whether or not you want to testify in this case?
I object to that question.
Okay, overruled.
3 times, Judge Deborah Nelson addressing Zimmerman directly.
Have you made a decision as to whether or not you want to testify in this case?
No, not at this time.
Her insistence to try to ensure that Zimmerman wasn't pressured not to testify. Finally, his answer.
And what is your decision, sir?
After consulting with counsel, not to testify, Your Honor.
It was the most he'd spoken in court on a day in which the defense rested. Earlier, the defense called law enforcement trainer Dennis Roop. The witness saying Zimmerman was by no stretch an athlete. Under cross-examination, the prosecution used a foam mannequin to simulate the struggle that night.
Were you aware that the defendant described to his best friend that when he slid down, the defendant slid down, that Trayvon Martin was up around his armpits? Were you aware of that?
No, I've not heard that.
Curious, jurors and even the defense craning their necks to see.
Where would the gun be now?
Now the gun would be behind your left leg.
Okay.
The defense
May I use your dog for a moment?
using the same mannequin.
Were the injuries on Mr. Zimmerman's back of his head consistent with someone doing this on cement?
I don't think so.
How about this? How about somebody resisting the attempt? The injuries, the 2 lacerations, could that have come from cement? If somebody was resisting me pushing down like this?
I believe so.
Now, Diane, the judge said that she wants closing arguments as early as tomorrow. She wants the jury to have the case on Friday. Now, the prosecution wants them to see 3 charges: second-degree murder, manslaughter, and aggravated assault. Now, Zimmerman now is telling us that his attorneys are telling us that he is very anxious tonight. He faces either a prospect of life in prison or freedom. Diane.
Thanking Matt Gutman once again tonight, and I want to bring in ABC's chief legal analyst, Nightline anchor Dan Abrams. So, Dan, only 12 days of testimony seems awfully short in a trial like this to me.
Many of the facts weren't in dispute here. No one challenges the notion that George Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin. The question in this case was why and how, and that allows it to go a little quicker.
So let's talk about closing arguments to come. You have been saying that the prosecution has an uphill battle here. Can they ever turn it around, really turn the whole thing around in a closing argument?
Well, they certainly have to try, and they have to focus on the human aspect of this, that it's just wrong, that this shouldn't have happened. It didn't need to happen. That this is a 17-year-old walking home with Skittles and an iced tea who didn't need to die. And I think that that's got to be the focus, and the fact that they believe George Zimmerman initiated the encounter.
So they will be arguing the human emotion in this. Does this mean the whole question of race, which has been debated around this country, might be introduced by them?
It's certainly going to be suggested by them. They're going to use the word profiled, even though they're not allowed to say racially profiled. But there's no question that there's going to be an undercurrent of racial profiling throughout the closing argument of the prosecution.
All right, high drama to come in these closing arguments. Thanks again, Dan.